Alrighty, everybody. So in this movie we're about to review, we get to see Primal Batman take on a bunch of fucking barbarian, fucking rogue, fucking mutant, fucking subhuman creatures in a fantasy, an animated fantasy epic movie. So before we dive any deeper into this, please like, subscribe, follow the channel. Greatly appreciate it. So anyhow, on to the review. So if you haven't already figured out, the movie that is being reviewed is going to be the 1983 animated cult classic Fire and Ice. For those of you unfamiliar with Fire and Ice, it is a like a fantasy or dark fantasy movie, much in the vein of, how would you say, like Conan the Barbarian. It's that kind of movie. Actually, a lot of the promotional material for this movie, especially like the poster you see in the thumbnail and you're going to be seeing just splashed throughout this review, was a lot of it was designed by Frank Frazetta. He was a famous artist. I know he's famous for, I guess, his paintings and drawings of his babes, I suppose. Also, he was one of the primary leading artists for the Conan the Barbarian series for a while. His artwork is very recognizable. So again, he's the one that designed the poster you see. And then, of course, this movie is directed by the famous, or some circles, the infamous Ralph Bakshi. Now, he rose to fame as an animating director with his directorial debut, Fritz the Cat, back in the 1970s. And that movie was famous for being the first X-rated cartoon or X-rated animated movie released in theaters. And I know that kind of garnered him some fame. And then he actually went on, he had some other, I guess, sleeper hits, very gritty storytelling type movies. He eventually was tapped by Warner Brothers to do the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, like the animated movies, which a lot of people, especially fans of the franchise, consider those classics. So he's the mastermind behind those. And then, of course, 20th Century Fox Studios tapped him to direct this. So one of the obvious standout features of this movie, besides its dark undertones, its fantasy landscape nature, is the fluid animation. So for those of you unfamiliar with Ralph Bakshi's work, he's a big fan of using what they call rotoscoping, which basically they'll have like actors or models act out the scenes that's going to be animated, and then they'll go back in and then trace over whatever it is they're doing, and then that becomes the animation. He didn't pioneer it, and the technique was around long before him, but he made damn good use of it. So the rotoscoping technique lended to some very fluid and amazing animation, especially for that time period. So anyhow, the plot of this movie is very, colored by numbers type of fantasy movie. You have your hero named Larn, and he's a survivor of a village that's attacked by some like ice storm, glacier storm, that is summoned by like the evil, like wizard type character named Necron, who is really being manipulated by his mother, the evil queen Juliana. Anyhow, one thing leads to another in this movie, and eventually, Larn is put into action. However, how would you say, he'll come across some various rogues and other characters. Now, one of the other more important characters in this movie, and probably one of the reasons why you clicked on the review, is one of the opening sequences of the movie. There's a town or kingdom attacked, and the king's name is Gerry, and then pretty much he has like this super hot daughter named Tigra, who's the princess of that kingdom. And basically they're taking this over to force her to be the bride of Necron, kind of thing, so they can produce a well-developed heir, kind of thing. However, she escaped, and then she'll come across Larn, and then she'll eventually come across primal prehistoric Batman, aka Dark Wolf. Now, he is obviously not Batman. I won't get that out of the way. He just has like that cowl thing. He has like a, I forget what it was, like a real animal, or he's got some like saber-tooth tiger thing, or lion. It says cowl and cape. Looks badass. Anyhow, basically, Lauren and Tigra meet up, and then they gotta go to this fantasy land and all this shit, and eventually they will come across Dark Wolf, and then Tigra is eventually successfully kidnapped. However, that leads to the final climactic confrontation in the movie, where it's Dark Wolf that ends up actually destroying Necron. And then, of course, Lauren and Tigra, during the fight, manage to escape the cataclysm that ensues from all of the destruction. And then, of course, not much else to say about the plot here. It's very colored by numbers, as I've already said earlier. And then one of the twists in this is, like I said earlier, Necron is the main villain. However, his mother, the queen, is the one kind of like pulling the strings, in the background, so to speak. Again, the reason why she's pulling the strings is just to, so basically, so her son can doink the princess. That's the plot. All right. Now, there's a lot of cool fight sequences, fantasy Conan style, scattered throughout the film. There's a fight with a monster giant squid kraken creature and these dragon rider things, and then you got the fight sequences of the mutants, or as they're referred to as subhumans in the movie. And then, of course, anytime Dark Wolf shows up on screen, he's the one that really saves the day. He's a fucking badass. Not much more else to say about that guy, other than total badass. So, he's kind of like a rogue third party that just hates fucking the evil Necron, so to speak. So enough about all that. This movie is what it is. The fantasy epic movies became very popular because of the Arnold Schwarzenegger-led Conan the Barbarian. I think it was like 1980, 1981. And that spawned a whole slew of copycats and sequels and spin-offs. From that you got Conan the Destroyer, which was definitely not as good. You got like Beastmaster. You got Red Sonja. Hell, I think that even had a sequel. But I know there's a bunch of other copycats and shit. And fucking He-Man, Masters of the Universe. There's a whole bunch of copycats. Now, the reason why I singled this movie out was, the animation is just very captivating. Whether or not you think that it's a good movie or not, you can't knock on the animation quality. It's top notch, even from back then. Very just fluid and just crisp. The rotoscoping technique, really stands out. Especially back in the days where everything was hand drawn cell animation. Just, the results speak for themselves. Not much more I could really add to it from a descriptive point of view. And then, of course, a lot of the characters, again, it was a collaborative effort with Ralph Bakshi and Frank Frazetta. they really try to stay true to the designs of Frazetta in the animation process. I think you can see that with like the very Conan inspired designs, and Princess Tigra, speaks for herself. The 80 kitty fairies, skipped her house, so to speak. Yeah, I think if they were to remake this movie, I think it would be just because of her design as a character. If they don't change it, it would get a very hard R rating. Because, good lord. There's some special emphasis placed on her design. And this is actually something that not Frazetta, Bakshi does in a lot of his movies. He got one called like Wizards, where he's got like a Tinkerbell type character with humongous jugs. He's got Cool World, which that one combines his animation style with actual real life actors, like the vein of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And that one stars Brad Pitt. So he's a very influential director, especially in the realm of animation. With all that said, go check out this movie. It's a fun watch. I wouldn't recommend you watch it more than a couple times, but it's a fun one. And then go check out some of Bakshi's other works. And then if you're a fan of the comics and everything, find some of the old school Conan comics or other ones that Frazetta helped design. And until the next time, thank you all for tuning in.